This is Democracy Watch. Mark, we have watched in the last few days as Trump has signed numerous executive orders targeting law firms. This is obviously a space that you work in. First of all, did we see the law firms, in light of this happening, come together and push back against the Trump administration, try to have some solidarity within the industry?
No. So, look, I have been a vocal critic of the legacy media who, bowed and scraped when Donald Trump came calling. And when the Associated Press was targeted in particular, we saw a whole lot of legacy media organizations take a step back rather than embrace the AP and boycott the Oval Office and the other things that were being put on them. I was a big critic of the billionaires and the oligarchs who bent a knee and flew their private jets to Mar-a-Lago, and a big critic of big business that has refused to stand up. And I am a critic also of what we have seen from the big law firms, oftentimes referred to as big law, because they have not stood behind the firms that have been targeted. They have not issued public statements saying this is an outrage. Instead, they too seem to be cowed. They seem to be hiding. They seem to think that if they simply don't offend Donald Trump, perhaps they will escape it. Well, I'll tell you what, that is not the job of a lawyer. It's not the job of a law firm. And as you and I have talked in so many other contexts, it doesn't even work. It doesn't even work. Like, Donald Trump has an unlimited appetite for obsequiousness. So it's never enough. It's never like you do enough to just stay out of his way.
Mark, just for posterity here, were these law firms that had previously been willing to confront Trump?
Look, I mean, here's the thing. Every law firm is involved in doing some work adverse to the federal government. So in that sense, sure. And certainly, one of them, which was my former law firm, when I was there, we did a lot of litigation against the Trump campaign and the like. But I wouldn't say either of these law firms were like running around as a business model, sticking their finger in the eye of Donald Trump or the Trump administration. I mean, certainly you had practices, like I mentioned, like mine when it was at one of these firms that was adversarial to the Trump campaign and to some extent the Trump administration in his first term. But mostly these are big corporate law firms that represent a broad variety of interests, a broad variety of clients. And I think Donald Trump just decided that he wanted to make an example. In the one instance, he picked a law firm that had the audacity, wait for it, to have a meeting with Jack Smith to potentially represent him. Okay, like that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about. In the other instance, obviously, like I said, my presence there prior to 2021 or through part of 2021 was part of the impetus. But these are pretenses, in my view, for him to try to bring big law to heel, in the same way that I would argue that his picking a fight with the Associated Press over whether they call it the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of America is a pretense to show the rest of the media that he can come down really hard on the Associated Press.
And so to that exact point, knowing that it's not really necessarily about the specific law firm that he targets, it's more about the chilling effect that it'll have more broadly, knowing that the federal judiciary has served as such an effective bulwark against his administration, is there concern that if he basically picks off one by one these major law firms, which are necessary, I mean, you need lawyers to be able to argue in court, by picking off all of these law firms that will be able to make the case against his administration in the federal courts, which again have served as an effective bulwark against his administration, that he'll kind of neuter the most potent tool that we have to fight back against him?
Absolutely. And look, I mean, it's worse than that. I don't think he has to go after a lot of law firms, right? He only has to go after a couple and the rest get the message. I mean, let's remember, Brian, you and I were sharing the outrage of so many when ABC News agreed to settle a frivolous case for $1 million. What did we see after that? We saw afterwards the billionaire owners of media just like tripping over themselves to give $1 million, to settle for $15 million. I think we got Bezos paid $40 million for a movie.
Are you suggesting that Melania's life story is not worth $40 million to audiences who are thirsting for that kind of entertainment?
Well, I mean, I guess he doesn't own a record label, right? So he couldn't sign your favorite Trump, your favorite artist.
That's right. Lara just always getting snubbed.
Right. So, but yeah, so like, look, I mean, that is of course what I worry about here. And you point out
Yeah.
the fact that it is ultimately the courts right now that are the institution that is standing up to Donald Trump. So if you take out of the equation large law firms in terms of their willingness to do the work that clients bring them or that clients need them to do on a pro bono basis or on a paid basis to hold Trump accountable and to challenge illegal action, if you take them out of the equation, you have taken away a big part of the legal arsenal. Now, not all of it. I mean, you still got smaller law firms, and I pointed out on social media, that the Wall Street Journal may say that elite law firms are in retreat. Well, I run an elite law firm. We're not in retreat, and there are other elite law firms not in retreat. So it's not defanging everyone, but if you take out of the equation some of these really large law firms, it will make a difference.
To that point, you have been in the crosshairs of Donald Trump and those who are in his orbit for quite a long time. Famously, sadly, Lou Dobbs never got to see you make good on that $500 million offer that he put out there to get you to cross sides and go on to the other side. But given the fact that you've been in the crosshairs of the Republicans for so long, do you have any concern about the Trump administration targeting you?
Look, of course I have concerns that the Trump administration is going to target me. I mean, the Trump administration is going to engage in political retribution against its enemies. It is going to launch every tool available to it to quiet its critics. I am definitely an enemy. I mean, that, is something that Kash Patel and Steve Bannon talked about. I am definitely a critic. I am as loud a critic as I possibly can be. And so, of course, I'm worried that Donald Trump is going to target me, that Donald Trump's administration is going to target me. But the question is not whether or not I am worried. The question is, what do we do with that worry? And so I wrote about this on Democracy Docket. It is okay to be afraid. What is not okay is to let that fear cause you to back down. If you were a critic of Donald Trump when he was on trial in New York courtrooms, why are you not a critic of him today? If you were happy to say when Joe Biden was in the White House that Donald Trump doesn't deserve to be any place near the White House, right? Remember all those people saying that in the legacy media? If you were willing to say that, then why aren't you willing to say that today? And if you were a lawyer willing to volunteer or for pay to protect voting rights against Donald Trump, who were willing to challenge the unlawful actions of the first Trump administration, and now you find yourself quiet, you are part of the problem. Right? You're not just neutral. You are part of the problem because you were happy when it was easy and when it was convenient and when everyone would celebrate you to stand up for democracy. But now that it is really on the line, if you are sitting in the back row trying to figure out how you get out of the room first, then you're worse in some sense than the folks who never spoke up at all.
Well, look, that exact lack of courage is the complete opposite of what you and your team have been doing at Democracy Docket, which is fighting back loudly and proudly against the worst excesses of this administration. Highly recommend for folks who are looking to get a good source of news and also to support a team of people who isn't afraid of this administration, who isn't looking to just kowtow to those in power by virtue of them being in power right now. Please make sure to sign up for Democracy Docket. It is the news outlet Mark founded to focus on everything voting and election. It's become a crucial resource for me on a daily basis. So I'll put that link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Mark Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.